Good day, everyone. My name is Jubel Ongvia Brantas, Human Resource Officer 1. Today, I'm going to discuss the Republic Act 6713, otherwise known as Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. This law contains the standard which public employees must follow and contains penalties for its violations. This is important as this governs the rules and regulations that government officials and employees must follow. You have to be aware of the restrictions stated in this law. It encompasses the ethical norm standard on how accountability in the service shall be measured. As public officials and employees, we have the duty of protecting not only our integrity but also that of the government. It means we cannot be bribed, bought, swayed, coerced, or made to do something that does not adhere to the highest moral standards. These rules shall cover all officials and employees in the government, elective and appointed, permanent or temporary, whether in the career or non-career, service, including military and police personnel, whether or not they receive compensation regardless of the amount. Focus questions. What positive actions, behaviors are expected of me as a public officer? And what negative actions, behavior must I as a public officer avoid? In the context of Philippine government, the highest standards of ethics are embodied in the Republic Act 6713. It also bears the 8 norms of conduct that every public official and employee shall observe in the discharge and execution of the official's duties. First, employees and officials should put the public interest above their own. Public officials and employees shall always uphold the public interest over and above personal interests. All government resources and powers of their respective offices must be employed and used efficiently, effectively, honestly, and economically, particularly to avoid wastage in public funds and revenues. For example, using office supplies economically, using agency vehicles for official use only, exposing graft and corruption, and taking care of office as if they are your own. That means honesty in usage of government funds and properties and using it for the office purposes only. Second, professionalism. Public officials and employees shall perform and discharge their duties in the highest degree of excellence, professionalism, intelligence, and skill. They shall enter public service with utmost devotion and dedication to duty. And they shall endeavor to discourage wrong perception of their roles as dispensers or peddlers of undue patronage. Meaning, government employees and officials should do their duty in a competent manner. Possession of specialized knowledge for the job, as the general public would be the ones that would benefit from the services offered. For instance, showing your professionalism through conscientiousness performance of work and very satisfactory performance rating, a satisfied and happy client, or strict observance of the office rules and regulation is also showing your professionalism. Justice and sincerity. Public officials and employees are expected to have good morals, remain true to the people at all times, and act with justice and sincerity, and shall not discriminate against anyone, especially the poor and the underprivileged. Fair, impartial determination of a problem or situation requiring action, avoid favoritism in the workplace, and shun the practice of palakasan system. Political neutrality. Public officials and employees shall provide service to everyone without unfair discrimination and regardless of party affiliation and preference. Diligent and honest performance of duties regardless of the political affiliation of or change of management in the agency. And appointment promotion in the government should be based on merit and fitness. Responsiveness to the public. Extend prompt, courteous, and adequate service to the public. avoid red tape, and develop an understanding and appreciation of the socioeconomic conditions prevailing in the country, and strictly follow the Anti-Red Tape Act mandates. Just like professionalism, governments should provide the best service that they can provide to the public and assist them with concerns that they have. They should provide info that the public can understand and clearly. Nationalism and patriotism. Public officials and employees should at all times be loyal to the Republic and to all Filipino people. Promote the use of locally produced goods, resources, and technologies, and encourage appreciation and pride of country and Filipino. They shall endeavor to maintain and defend Philippine sovereignty against foreign intrusion. Government officials and employees are required to be loyal to the state. Exercise the right to vote. Conservation and protection of threatened natural resources. Patronizing Filipino products and support to the Filipino athletes and artists. Commitment to the democracy. Public officials and employees shall commit themselves to the democratic way of life and values, maintain the principle of public accountability, and manifest by deeds the supremacy of civilian authority over the military. And they shall at all times uphold the Constitution and put loyalty to country above loyalty to person or party. As the Philippines itself, it has a democratic form of government where authority is derived from the voting populace, meaning respect the right of people to express their opinions, although it differs from your own, obedience to the rule of law, governance and decision-making through transparent process, consensus, majority rule, and popular consultation. Officials and employees are expected to uphold the Constitution, recognize the superiority of civilian authority to military, and put the country above party lines or persons. And lastly, simple living. Public officials and employees and their families shall lead modest lives appropriate to their positions and income. They shall not indulge in extravagance or ostentatious display of wealth in any form. Use of appropriate jewelry, especially in the workplace, wearing of appropriate clothes, accessories, and as a public servant, generally are expected to live a lifestyle in proportion to our salary and not engage in extravagance. This is why we need to submit our statements of asset, liabilities, and net worth, SALN, to check if there are any discrepancies. Now, we all know the 8 norms of conduct: commitment to the public interest, professionalism, justness and sincerity, political neutrality, responsiveness to the public, nationalism and patriotism, commitment to democracy, and simple living. So let's proceed to administrative and disciplinary cases stem from failure to uphold ethical standards. Under grave offenses, Section 50A, it includes serious dishonesty. Dishonesty is defined as intentional making a false statement in any material fact or practicing any deception or fraud. It's not simply a base judgment or negligence but a question of intention. For example, falsification of documents and misrepresentation of facts. Gross neglect of duty, defined as absence of due diligence, a thoughtless disregard of consequences without exerting any efforts to avoid them. Habitual neglect implies repeated failure to perform one's duty. Grave misconduct. The misconduct is grave if it involves any additional elements of corruption, willful intent to violate the law, or to disregard established rules which must be established by substantial evidence. Receiving for personal use of a fee, gift, or any valuable thing, or soliciting or accepting directly or indirectly any gift, gratuity, favor, entertainment, loan, or anything that is monetary value is under the grave offenses. Contracting loans of money or other property from persons with whom the office and the employees has business relation is also under the grave offenses. Nepotism, And disloyalty to the Republic of the Philippines and to the Filipino people is under the grave offenses. Schedule of penalties for the grave offenses. As the Rule 10, first offense is suspension of 6 months and 1 day to 1 year. Meanwhile, second offense is dismissal from the service. The 2017 Rules on Administrative Case in the Civil Service, or RACS, contains procedural and guidelines for the disposition of disciplinary and non-disciplinary cases. It is aimed at ensuring consistency, predictability, and stability, values which are integral in upholding the rule of law. It also affords government workers fair treatment and protects them for being victimized by political biases, persecution, and personal whims. Administrative offenses with corresponding penalties are classified into grave, less grave, or light, depending on their gravity or depravity and effects on the government services as prescribed under existing Civil Service Commission rules and regulations. Under less grave offenses are less serious dishonesty, oppression or grave abuse of authority, disgraceful and immoral conduct. Sample of that for the less serious dishonesty is lying in the course of duty or tampering of DDR. Oppression or grave abuse of authority may be an act of cruelty, panlalait, mamamaliit, severity or excessive abuse use of authority. Under also is the frequent unauthorized absences or habitual absenteeism, habitual tardiness in reporting for duty causing prejudice to the office, loafing from duty during office hours, refusal to perform official duty, gross insubordination, inefficiency and incompetence in the performance of officials' duty. Directly or indirectly having financial and material interest in any transaction requiring the approval of his and her office, and financial and material interest is defined as peculiarity or propriety interest by which a person will gain or lose something. Owning, controlling, managing, or accepting employment as officer, employee, consultant, counsel, broker, agent, trustee, or nominee in any private enterprise regulated, supervised, or licensed by his and over unless expressly allowed by law. Disclosing or misusing confidential or classified information officially known to him or her by reason of his and her office and not made available to the public to further his or her private interest or give undue advantage to anyone to prejudice the public interest. Obtaining and using any statement filed under the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees for any purpose contrary to morals or public policy or any commercial purpose other than by news and communication media for dissemination to the general public. Recommending any person to any position in a private enterprise which has a regulated or pending official transaction with his or her office unless such recommendation or referral is mandated by 1. Law, 2. International agreements and commitment and obligation, and as part of the function of his or her office. The schedule of penalties for the less grave offenses are: first offense is suspension of 1 month and 1 day to 6 months, and meanwhile, second offense is dismissal from the service. Under light offenses is willful failure to pay just debts or willful failure to pay taxes due to the government. The term just debts shall apply to claims adjudicated by a court or law, or claims the existence and justness of which are admitted by the debtor. Lobbying for personal interest or gain in legislative halls and offices without authority. Promoting the sale of tickets in behalf of private enterprises that are not intended for charitable or public welfare purposes, and even in the latter cases if there is no prior authority. Failure to act promptly on letters and requests within 15 working days from receipt except as otherwise provided in the rules implementation of the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. failure to process documents and complete actions on documents and papers within a reasonable time from preparation thereof, except as otherwise provided in the rules implementing the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Failure to attend to anyone who wants to avail himself, herself, of the services of the office or act promptly and expeditiously on public transactions. Engaging in private practice of his and her profession unless authorized by the Constitution, law, or regulation, or the head of office, provided that such practice will not conflict with his and her official functions. Pursuit of private business, vocation, or profession without the permission required by the civil service rules and regulations. Other specific offenses under Section 51A, the offense of sexual harassment. For the grave offense of sexual harassment is dismissal from the service. Example of that is unwanted touching of private parts of the body, inner thighs, genitalia, buttocks, and breasts, derogatory or degrading remarks of innuendos directed towards the members of one sex or one sexual orientation, or used to describe a person, verbal abuse or threats with sexual overtones, or requesting for favor in exchange for employment, promotion, local or foreign travels, and favorable working condition or assignments and passing grade, the granting of honors or scholarship. Surreptitiously looking or stealing a look at a person's private part or worn undergarments, and telling sexist statements, multi-jokes, or sending through text, electronic mail, including but not limited to social media platform, causing embarrassment or offense and carried out after the offender has been advised that they are offensive or embarrassing, or even without advice when they are by their nature clearly embarrassing, offensive, or vulgar is under the light offense of sexual harassment. Reprimand for the first offense, 1 to 30 days suspension on the second offense, and dismissal of the third offense. Malicious leering or ogling or malicious glance, display of sexually offensive pictures, materials, or graffiti, unwelcome inquiries or comments about a person's sex life, unwelcome sexual flirtatious advances or propositions, and making offensive hand or body gestures at an employee. Persistent unwanted attention with sexual overtones, unwelcome phone calls with sexual overtone causing discomfort, embarrassment, offense, or insult to the receiver. The offenses of sexual harassment may take place in the following: workplace, school, or training institution, any place where the parties were found as a result of work or education, training, responsibilities, or relations with work, education, training, and social function, outside official business or travel, official conferences, fora, symposia, or training session, by telephone, cell phone, fax machine, or email. Who can be held liable for the sexual harassment? Any government official or employee, regardless of sex, who directly participate in the execution, induces, or directs another to commit sexual harassment, cooperates in the commission without which the sexual harassment would not have been committed, cooperates in the commission of the sexual harassment by another through previous or simultaneous act. Other specific offenses under Section 51B is the violation of the RA 9485 or Anti-Red Tape Act or 2007. Grave offenses of fixing and or collusion with fixers in consideration of economic and or other gain or advantage shall be penalized by dismissal and perpetual disqualification from public office. For the light offenses, first offense is 30 days suspension without pay and mandatory attendance in values or orientation program, 3 months suspension without pay for the second offense, and for the third offense, dismissal and perpetual disqualification from the public service. Redefine the penalty of demotion, Rule 10, Section 50C. Inefficiency and incompetence in the performance of official duties may also be punishable by demotion. In such case, the guilty person shall suffer diminution in salary corresponding to the next lower salary grade with the same salary step. What are the light offenses? A. Refusal to accept application and or request within the prescribed period or any document being submitted by the client. B. Failure to act on an application or request or failure to refer back to the client a request which cannot be acted upon due to the lack of requirements within the prescribed period, and failure to attend to clients who are within the premises of the office or agency concerned prior to the end of official working hours and during lunch break. Failure to render frontline services within the prescribed period on any application request without due cause. Failure to give to a client written notice on the disapproval of the request, and imposition of additional irrelevant requirements other than those listed in the first notice. So that's all again, and thank you for your listening.